Many Flesh and Blood players ask the question, is it worth it to buy the Classic Battles to Rhino versus Dorinthia box? No. I mean, I love the Professor. I don't think he'll mind if I borrow that for a minute. Just because he's always about new players and getting them into the game, so I think he'll appreciate that. So in this episode of Steelfur Speaks, obviously I'm Steelfur, aka Finbar, London-based Flesh and Blood player. I've also been commentator, caster, general loudmouth. Happy to talk about Flesh and Blood because I love the game. As people will know, on my channel, we do a lot of talking about the current news of the game. We have this Steelfur Speaks playlist, and we have a competitive playlist, which is just Steelfur Supremacy. You can find both of those on my channel. This one is updated every week or 2 weeks, depending on how busy work is. The Steelfur Supremacy one is updated less frequently, but does get deck lists, deck techs, tournament metas, tier lists, that kind of thing. So it's kind of a good place to follow if you want that kind of content. If you are a new player listening to this, I also do have a new player hero overview, which is a series of videos that run you through every hero in the game, their playstyle, etc., which you can find again as a playlist on my channel. So getting into the content of the day, obviously we need to talk about the fact that RTNs have been announced. We need to talk about the fact that ELO has been updated. We need to talk about classic battles, and we need to talk about the Uprising spoiler season and everything we have coming up there. As part of my preparation for the Uprising set, I have bought a piece of Lego. You can, let me see if I can bring it up for you. You can see the piece of Lego that I have bought. It is this Phoenix thing. And I'm just going to be building that over the next few sort of episodes of this podcast. So you can have that on in the background. You can sort of watch me putting it together and sort of getting all those pieces together. I think it was quite fun. I'm quite pleased that I bought this. And obviously I'm kind of giving you all a bit of a hint that my spoiler is related to Ninja in Uprising. I don't know yet if I have a generic yet. I've sort of bought this. I bought this Phoenix as a bit of a punt. I don't know yet if I have a an actual draconic Phoenix card, or whether I have something a bit more crazy or something like that. So I'm going to speed this up a little bit just because I want you guys to see it, but I don't want you guys to run out of it before I run out of things to talk about. So let's just put that on to, let's say, 7.5. I think that's a good speed. Maybe we'll go for about there, 1.5 speed. So you can get to see my hands moving very quickly. So really what we're sort of aiming for here, I mean, I'm just trying to build a bit of hype. Once it's done, you'll be able to see the Phoenix Majesty. And obviously I'm getting my preview card coming in the post on Monday. Do not run my house. You will not know where it is. It may not even be being delivered here. You have no way of knowing. And I'm also going to pick up my Classic Battles set, probably not this evening, probably on Sunday. I'm playing in a ProQuest tomorrow, and I've got a Learn to Play event that I'm running on Sunday, so I will be hopefully introducing some new players into the game. It's kind of like, you guys might find it quite interesting that we've made the decision to actually take the competitive teeth out of our armories just a bit more often, because we really were like going draft, blitz, CC. Oh, there's a pro quest. Okay, let's do 3 weeks of CC to get ready for the pro tour. Like, let's do and basically treating Wednesday nights and our armories as like a competitive practice ground. And that made it a real challenge to get new players into the game, because some will be like, oh, I'm interested in learning to play. When are you playing, like, casually? And I'd be like, well, we don't really do that. We play Swiss. And they're like, well, I don't really want to join in with Swiss because I'm not ready for it. And I was like, well, okay. And that basically I would have to come in at a separate day to teach that person. I couldn't just get them to come down on our regular day and teach them, which is kind of a bit of a flaw in the system that we were running. But also, the other challenge, and I've kind of said this before, is that with the more competitive and people want to play like the best Flesh and Blood they can, So with that more competitive mindset that my players had, it became difficult for new players even to join, even if they, they bought a deck and they knew they were happy to play Swiss, because you'd be basically coming in with maybe a box, maybe a blitz deck into a field where most people have their legendaries already. Most people have all the stuff that they need. So really, they're just, they're sitting there being like, well, I have this really optimized, powerful deck because I'm practicing for the skirmish, I'm practicing for the battle hardened or the pro tour, and this is a new player trying to enter in that environment. So after chatting to all the local crew, the decision was made to just try and depower at least once or twice a month. And that could be depowering through still competitive practice for drafting, but one pod will be more competitive than the other pod, or it doesn't matter if a few new players are put in the mix in the competitive draft, you can still get good draft practice even with one or two people who aren't as good. Or playing something like Commoner, or some other format that's going to give people room to breathe, right? And someone suggested from another store that we do a Commoner format whereby you don't bring the deck or play the deck that you bring. So literally, you build a deck and then the newest player in the room gets to pick the deck off the table that they want to play with. And obviously, if a deck is known for being very, very strong, then a new player might pick that first, and sort of get that sort of capability, to maybe win a bit more in that way. So, I think that's quite fun. That's quite interesting. I'm definitely happy that we've taken that approach, and obviously we're running this new player event. We've had a little bit of interest, and it also gives me a direct thing to point to them. Like, it's okay if not every Wednesday is applicable to them straight out of the gate if they don't want to be competitive and build a deck for every format. But at least if I can say, look, if you come on the second Tuesday of the month, that's draft. If you come on the the last Wednesday of the month, that's Commoner. It gives them a window to enter into the game. Obviously, now is a great time to do new player learn to play events because we have Uprising coming in less than a month. So anyone who starts can can get in and buy Uprising, and anyone who wants to can buy the new Dorinthia versus Rhinar starter deck that came out this week, which obviously we're going to be talking about later on. So let's start off. Obviously, RTNs have been announced. There's a really big debate at the moment as to how Nationals is going to be dealt with. There's probably going to be more RTNs. I'd say probably about 20% more RTNs across the world than there were before. I wouldn't be too surprised by that. A country like the UK could easily get 20. Something like that, and there'll be a lot of people qualified through RTNs. I think the size of your nationals will still really depend on the size of the player base in your country. I think it's very much still going to be a case of, are we putting on a 90-person, 100-person, 200-person event, and that will all be determined by the size of the player base in your country. I just think that's the only reasonable way it's going to be. Because remember the last time it was XP and then it was qualified and then filled to a certain number based on XP. I fully expect that to happen again. So the person who's running the nats in your country will submit whatever they think a sensible number is for them to run and to operate. Based on the size of the venue they can get, and how much money LSS is willing to give them to pay for a venue, because remember LSS does help people pay for their venues for nationals. And once they've agreed on that number, then it will be qualifications through RTNs, and then it will be XP based to fill in the gaps. But we had, I think, was it 90 something? We had 150 people at the venue in the UK, so I would expect in the UK we'll have another 150 to 200 person road to nationals. I expect America will still be large. I think a lot more other countries are going to get smaller ones, or the ones that got open entry will get invitation ones this time, as things kind of tighten up on that front. So I do expect to see quite a few changes on how nationals is handled, but I don't think we're going to see anything drastic like a switch to ELO invites or anything like that. It will still be primarily RTNs and probably a certain amount of XP based invites as well, just to fill up numbers that aren't covered by the RTNs. I do hope, and I keep saying this, it would be really good if they made that change so that it is XP only earned at physical events in your country or physical events that you have attended. We are still in a situation where the best way to get an invite to nationals might be to grind online armories, which is a situation that really needs addressing quite strictly, I would say. So moving on from that, like, the only other thing really to talk about is obviously the RTN prizes. Um, we have the the cold foil heroes from Uprising. It is interesting that they've made Icelander like a prize winner card rather than a um like the others. So I don't know if people have seen how this works, but the top 8 basically get Phi or Dromai, and the person who comes first gets Icelander, right? So there'll be 1 Icelander given away, and then 7 Phi or Dromai given out, as well. So Icelander is sorry, there'll be 8 Phi or Dromai given out. Because the top player will get Icelander and a Phi or a Dromai. So it's kind of like this Icelander is being seen as the pinnacle prize for the tournament, which, to be fair, is quite a big step down from the extended art tunics, especially because we already have a cold foil Icelander, though obviously this will be adult Icelander, so it does have some different art. It will probably be more desirable. I mean, Steve Argyle has fantastic art on his Icelander, but, obviously this will be the adult one. Quite a few people like that. So it does have that element to it. So that is a big prize. There's also some unannounced rainbow foil for everyone who doesn't make the top 8. I will say making the top 8 and not getting the rainbow foil still feels a bit weird. Like, I know its participation prize and the cold foil heroes are a lot better, but as we saw with the last RTN, if you made the top 8 in all of them and you didn't get a single one of the cold foil auras, that actually kind of felt a bit weird, because that might be a prize that you want that you don't get because you did better, which is just a bit strange. So, this is just something to consider. Otherwise, I think, let's be honest, the EA tunics couldn't really be given out that level of prize every single time. I think they maybe didn't predict that it would be worth 1,500. The fact is that, like, it's a $1,500 prize for a store level tournament. Like, you can't really justify that. I think that is probably just way over the scale. So some people were saying, why don't we get EA Arcanite Skullcap and that kind of thing? I just think it is too much. I think that level of prize probably needs to be reserved for a Pro Tour or a Battle Hardened or something like that. It just does feel too much for this specific size of event, because some RTNs were actually only like 16 people, and they got this £1,500 card as a prize. So I think that was maybe something that LSS did, as a nice thing for the first RTN, but maybe not something that we can expect for future RTNs. I do think that is okay. I do think the prize pool has to adjust to match sort of the level of practicality in terms of prize for per, like, because if they did give out an EA Skullcap, it means the prize from an RTN would be worth more than most of the prizes people got from ProQuests, right? For example, it'd be worth more than the participations that people got at the Pro Tour, for example. So, it's a bit of a tricky area. Some people have said, why don't we use ELO for it? I mean, really, it's a bit of a problem. You don't really want ELO. I mean, ELO is given out at RTNs now. It is given out at ProQuest, so it is possible for local people to earn ELO. So you can understand ELO per country being a reasonably good measure of who the best players are. So maybe like a top 10 ELO per country invite to nationals could work. But given the limit, like, nationals is supposed to be more open for people to come from across your country, not just the professional players. And it's not supposed to be. It is a professional level tournament, but it's not supposed to be the premier professional level tournament. Some people have definitely said that for them, nationals is the end of their competitive plan. So, they don't expect or see themselves, trying to compete at Pro Tours, going to that many callings. The Nationals is kind of where they want to be. They want to go there. They want to see all their friends from across the country. And that kind of that's the highest pinnacle of fab for them. And there needs to be a direct pathway to get those people from playing and say, like, a skirmish at a local level and an RTN to playing at Nationals. And experience really is the route for that. So we could see like a top 10 ELO like invites for Nationals, but I do think we will just see XP plus RTN invites. What we saw last year, it made a lot of sense, because obviously if you're winning at RTNs, sorry, the camera's shaking because my phone was dying. If you're winning at RTNs, you're getting a lot of experience, and then that experience is thereby letting you qualify on Experience Internationals, even if you don't win an RTN. So the people who are playing a lot and playing a lot of RTNs will qualify, even if they don't win. So I think it's a perfect system, and we're going to kind of continue with that. On ELO, there was a bit of FUD going around on ELO. Some people were suggesting that ELO was being calculated basically based on your start of event score. So if I started the event on 1500, then every single match would be adjusted based on the difference between my original 1500 and the score that my opponent entered the event with. So if they were 1520 and I was on 1500, then it would be adjusted based on that score, not based on, say, the score per match as we go down. Which meant that, for example, if you started on 1500 or 1600 and you went on a losing streak, you would lose considerably more points. As you would be considered, you'd be losing a 1500 player worth of points every time you lost, instead of 1460, 1430, 1400, 1370, as it would drop down every loss. You should lose less points. However, I will say that has been debunked. So if you played at the Pro Tour, it was calculated per round. The reason that there was a lot of similarity between the scores is just that everyone was roughly on a similar sort of level of score throughout a lot of the tournament, wins, losses, gains, etc. I have seen definitive proof of this because the same player played his opponent twice, which is the only way really to get proper proof of that at this point. He played him once in the Swiss and again in the top cut, and he got different point level for both times he played him. So that means that it was calculating per match, because otherwise it would have not changed. I will say, like, pros and cons. Some chess tournaments and things like that do use a per tournament rather than a per match rating. It's a lot easier for the software to calculate. It means that when you go into a big tournament, you're incentivized to sort of try and get an even score, and it's also easier to keep your ranking high if you play against lower players, because you're not going to lose as many points if you lose to someone on a similar ranking. So it's kind of like pros and cons, right? There are pros to that approach, to have everyone starting and just having their calculation from that base score at the start. But I think the way they've decided to do it, where it updates per game, is much more intuitive, especially to those of us who play computer games, League of Legends and things like that. I'm currently playing a lot of Path of Exile. I'm playing an Absolution Necromancer, and I'm playing a Poison Concoction Pathfinder, both two, I would say, quite interesting builds, but I like the power and just the flexibility of the summoner builds. But that's a tangent anyway, so let's not go into that. So now, to go back to my joke at the start of the video, because I'm going to be doing a separate review on Classic Battles, but I do want to talk about it a bit here before I have the kit in front of me. So Classic Battles is both fantastic and flawed. Okay, that's the easiest way to say it. It's both fantastic and flawed. In what ways is it fantastic? It looks like a great out-of-the-box experience. I've been watching the videos on Fab TCG. It looks like the decks are reasonably well balanced against each other. It looks like it's going to be really good for new players to actually experience Flesh and Blood in a very closed environment, a very good starter box environment where they've got two decks that go well into each other and create a fun, sort of repeatable play experience. Oh, it's my turn to play Dorinthia. Oh, but you played Dorinthia last time. Okay, well, let me play Rhinar now. Cool. And then, a bit of back and forth with both decks winning here and there. Okay, and the playmat, a little bit of lore. It all seems to be quite good. I've been watching, so I haven't picked up my copy yet. Other people break down the set, and it seems to be like a very good new player set. There are a few issues. The price is definitely an issue for consideration. It's been raised by a few people. It is quite an expensive set in a lot of places. And I think if they could have done things to make it cheaper, that would have probably been a smart decision. Just is it sort of like triple the cost of a Blitz deck for two Blitz decks, when someone could buy a Blitz deck for a third of the price or a fourth of the price, is a bit of a pain. So price is definitely a factor. Design wise, it's hit many things out of the park for me. It's made a lot of smart decisions in terms of taking out cards that have complexity and not reprinting cards just for the sake of reprinting them. Like, for example, people are like, well, the Rhinar Club, why isn't it just why is it a significantly worse version of Romping Club? And You know, if you look at the set, you realize that it doesn't actually have ways to get Go Again into that club swing. So there's actually no point printing Romping Club in that set, because people will be confused by an ability that they actually can't trigger. That's important. It's important to understand that. And also, you know, and that is kind of echoed. You know, there are lots of cards in there that are there to demonstrate the game to new players, and they are, I would say, good cards for demonstrating the game to new players. Maybe not necessarily what people wanted in terms of, you know, a lot of Rhinar players wanted cards that would help them, especially when, and this is, I guess, is a point where things do get a bit confused. A lot more new cards on the Dorinthia side than on the Rhinar side, including a new weapon with a different ability, including a new hero with a different ability, and including a new majestic specialization with a different ability. And I think the fact that they spoiled those first, and, you know, kind of gave people the wrong impression about what to expect from Rhinar, which I think is a little bit of a misstep, because I think if they had been a lot more upfront and just said, you know, Rhinar's not getting a new specialization, he's just getting Alpha Rampage, you know, Rhinar's not getting a new ability, he's just getting the ability he had before. Well, just not the camera over. You know, I think all of those things would you know, all of those things would have tempered expectations a bit more. I think there is a decent chunk of disappointment from people who kind of expected something a bit more complex or a bit more nuanced or new for Brute, and really what they got was a few, like, there's quite a few new cards, but not cards that necessarily do new things, more cards that do things that Brute already does, but, you know, in a new, you know, with a new text, or simplified a little bit. And I think once they saw Glistening Spellblade, Steelblade, they kind of wanted something along the same lines, but they didn't get it, which I think was a bit of a miss for a lot of people. I will say that the Dorinthia changes make complete sense to me. Again, coming back to this idea that this set is meant for new players. You know, lots of Dorinthia's abilities and wordings cause confusion amongst new players. Dorinthia's own hero ability causes confusion among new players in terms of what it means to get an extra use but without Go Again, whereas by clarifying and putting Go Again in the ability, and saying one causes the other, you kind of have to learn the distinction to make sense of the ability. So before it was like, well, if I hit, I can use it a second time. You know, oh, so I have Go Again then. It's like, no, you don't have Go Again. You can trigger a second time. Whereas now it's like, well, you have Go Again. Okay, now you can use it a second time. It makes a lot more sense. And the same, I mean, really, like, if we look at Dorinthia's specializations, one is a free search tool for anything, which is both powerful and also probably very, very strong in this limited format. And the other one is Steelblade Supremacy, which is, of course, card draw, and probably very, very strong in this format as well. So I can imagine the Dorinthia cards being in a position where they kind of just needed to be changed. All of the new Dorinthia commons and things like that are just worse versions of existing cards, so I'm not that fussed about that. We've got a worse Warrior's Valor, we've got a worse, you know, a worse Sea Steelblade. There's a lot of just like, you know, there's a lot of, not Sea Steelblade, Shining Steelblade? Nah, they're all called Steelblade something. Anyway, the point is we have a lot of worse versions of existing cards, which is perfectly fine for a starter deck. So we're in a situation where this set's coming out. It's probably a little bit too expensive, but that's kind of okay as long as people are enjoying it as an out-of-the-box experience. There are, however, 2 or 3 bits that I am genuinely concerned about. The first is like pathway to expansion. I don't necessarily know, especially with the strength of those 2 heroes in the meta. I mean, you can't really deal with the meta when you're making a product like this. You kind of just have to make 2 cool heroes and hope that they work out by when the set comes out. So that bit's fine. But it's more about upgrade pathways, right? Because currently, if WTR is sold out, where it is in a lot of places, there is an issue with upgrade pathways to this deck being like, you have to buy history packs, which then have 6 classes that you can't really use in. So you're kind of buying these history packs hoping to get Brute and Warrior cards, but actually you're getting, you know, Mech and Runeblade cards, which is fine. I mean, you're going to find a use for them, but it's not necessarily a direct upgrade path. Whereas WTR, if it was still on the shelves, would have been a really good upgrade path. The other thing I'm concerned about is just, you know, one of the main concerns I have, and I understand, like, I have to be reasonable. Like, stores want this product to sell, and LSS wants stores to sell a lot of this product. But for a new player product to be successful, it has to be available for new players to see and buy and take off the shelves and play with. And the fact is that, okay, so a lot of things have got into this box that make it desirable for existing players, right? Specifically, we'll call out two things. So it has the cold foils, and there might be unplayable cold foils, but people do like to collect them regardless. But mainly, is the addition of the Dorinthia specialization, glistening Spellblade. Okay, so that's the glistening Spellblade. Is, it's a very simple card. It gives I think it just gives go again. I keep saying Spellblade, not Steelblade, because I've got Runeblade on the mind, but so like there are only certain number of new cards in this set, right? We've got the mentors. Those are fine. They're one of, so if anyone buys one of them, they'll be fine. And we have the we have the new weapons and all that sort of stuff, which not everyone wants. But this is the really big problem for me, right? The central big problem. Okay, it's actually quite a good card. Next Dawnblade attack has go again. Whenever Dawnblade hits a hero, put +1 counter on it. It's actually quite a good card. But unlike the mentors, you can play 3 of this. It's not legendary. You can put 3 of this in your deck. There are people who still main Dorinthia. There are people who want Dorinthia to succeed. This is not a bad card for them to upgrade their decks with. And it's not a bad option for them to upgrade their decks with either. So there are going to be a lot of Dorinthian players who want 3 of these. Okay? Never mind anything in the set. I know a lot of people who play Dorinthia or Rhino who would buy at least one of these just for the mentors, having the cold foils, the collectability, and that's fine. Buying 1 per person is kind of okay because, it's not going to be everyone buying 1. It's going to be, brutes and warriors buying 1, but not everyone is going to purchase one of these sets, right? So, I love it when you get the little motion going on the Lego. So that is kind of okay, if 0.7 of Fab players buy one or 0.5 of Fab players buy one of these, that's okay. The issue is that now we're kind of saying that if you want a Dorinthia deck which has this card in, and it is playable from the 27th, so from today, you need to buy 3 of these, right? Because it's not limited only to the new Dawnblades. Remember, there is a new Dawnblade in the packet, but this isn't limited to that. It says any Dawnblade, which means you can put this in Classic Dorinthia, right? So now we're saying that Dorinthia players, if you want to seriously play Dorinthia, need to hoover up 3 of these copies. Now, this is a bit of a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it means that a new player can probably actually sell this Majestic for a decent chunk of the box price of the box, right? We're not going to be able to sell it for $40, but, you could easily see a Majestic like this, assuming a reasonable amount of desirability from the Dorinthia players, netting you about $10, maybe, that kind of thing. Maybe taking off a fourth of the box price of this packet of this product, which could be good. But then you're also selling one of the coolest, most impactful cards that in the box that you purchased, which feels kind of bad. So this is definitely problematic. As I have said before, if you're going to add, and I kind of said this when I was thinking about this before, is that if you're going to add a new card that isn't a one-off, because remember Mentors, well, I guess the Mentor isn't a one-off either, is it? You can probably run 2 of those. So actually, you could easily see a Blitz Dorinthia player needing to buy 2 of these boxes just to get 2 of these. And same with Rhinar, just to get 2 of the Mentors. That's not really ideal. Okay, so we're creating a situation where these boxes have, for now at least, I'm sure these will be reprinted in a supplemental set at the end of the year, they have chase cards in, right? And those chase cards mean that there is more likely that there will be people, especially if these cards prove to be good in Blitz or good for the heroes that they were printed for, to be buying those specifically to get those cards as an existing player. Now, this does have a good effect. It does mean that this product sells, right? It means that stores are happier because this is flying off the shelves to people who want those cards. But I think a fundamental part of a new player product is that it needs to exist beyond its initial sale window. It can't just, like, if a store buys 25 boxes, 20 of them can't sell out to existing players on day one. If they do, then it's not a new player product, it's an existing product for your existing market, which is clearly not what this is. I mean, all of the cards in this box are underpowered. This is very, very much not a product for existing players. It has commons and things in. Really, what I would have liked to see, and I said this before we were talking about the set, is that there should have been an upgrade pack in the box. Either put 2 of the Majestics in the deck, that's fine, I don't really mind. 2 Mentors, 2 of the other ones, or include an upgrade pack that just has extra copies of the cards, right? I kind of said this before, it doesn't cost that much, at least as far as I know. This is in the video where I lost a piece. It doesn't cost that much to add in, 10 extra cards or something like that into this box. I mean, you could have easily cut out the playmat or cut out something else to make room for them, and basically given people the option of buying one of these and getting that upgrade pack, which includes those cards in, right? Because we're just in a situation where LSS have unfortunately created a problem for themselves, right? Where this product is going to be selling, it's going to be selling to a lot of new players. Sorry, not a lot of new players. It's going to be selling to a lot of existing players, which then, of course, just creates a problem, as this is supposed to be a new player set used to get new people into the game. Right, so what I'm going to say about that, I think that's finally, sort of, I've talked it to death. I think a lot of people agree that it's a bit of a tricky product, because you're kind of like looking at who it's designed for, and like I wouldn't really object if LSS's plan, and it kind of makes sense, was to have everyone who currently plays Rhino and Dorinthia buy one of these. But if the plan was to have everyone who currently plays Rhino or Dorinthia needing to buy 2 or 3 of these, depending on whether they play Blitz or CC, then you have a massive issue, because that is actually a price tag of what, $120 or something or more, which I think is completely unreasonable just to get 3 of a new Majestic and 2 of a new Mentor, because it's unlikely. I mean, new Dorinthia might see play, but she's young only. New Rhino, a new Rhino weapon is not going to see play because it's weaker than the club. New Dawnblade is interesting because it gets +1 just for having go again. But unfortunately, as it doesn't have the counters, I don't think it's going to see much play either. So it really is those cards, and take it from anyone who's played LCGs, buying a whole other box or something just to get a copy of another card or a playset of one card is just not really great. So definitely an area of concern for me. Otherwise, I would say this is a brilliant product. It has all the hallmarks of something that has been balanced for an out-of-box experience. It comes with everything I would need to get people excited about Flesh and Blood in terms of balanced decks that play versus each other, a starter playmat, bit of lore, all of those kind of things. I can't wait to unbox it tomorrow and do a bit more of a deep dive on this product and review all the cards and etc, etc. But that's kind of my thoughts, and it's a bit concerning. Otherwise, we're going into the Uprising Premier events in 2 weeks' time. I'm obviously playing the Calling. I haven't picked a deck yet, but I will be playing the Calling in Madrid. So if you're there, please come and say hello. I have a team as well for that, which is going to be great. They're really great people. And obviously I'll be doing some sort of live streams and definitely showing you my pulls at the Uprising Premier event. I can't really do anything less than that. So, yeah, we have to, yeah, because I have to get those cards out there, right? I don't think they're actually casting. I've been told they're not actually casting any of the events. Well, this is good. So this is the stand done on the Lego. I don't think they're casting any of the events. But people will obviously be doing live streams of all of this stuff and everything they have and all that kind of thing. Just to get everything ready and get everything out there and show people all the cards and build the hype and all that kind of stuff. So I would expect a big social media presence. I think there's going to be, we may as well use a hashtag like Uprising Premiere or something. I'm going to be tagging stuff like that, showing all my spoilers off. I imagine everyone on Discord will have seen all the cards within the first half an hour. And I also be taking, I bought this thing. Can I show you on this camera? I bought this thing. I have this little alien tripod. I'll be taking that with me to record some of the games and things that are going on over the weekend. So expect to see that sort of thing from me, even if I'm not casting. But that's sort of going to be really fun, and it's just generally be a good weekend. And then of course we're coming back and playing even more pre-releases. I asked the guys what they wanted to do, the people even, sorry, what they wanted to do after Uprising came out. What did they want to do? Did they want to play Blitz? Did they want to play CC? I only got votes for draft. No one wants to do anything except draft after the new set comes out. So it looks like we'll be drafting for like 2 or 3 weeks, and then we'll be playing some Blitz or CC, but we might even just keep drafting and play Blitz or CC in our own time. People are really keen to just draft a lot. I think with this new set, we haven't had a draft set in a while, especially with the Pro Tour and Nationals having draft components, draft RTNs as well. People definitely want drafts as part of their weekly playtime. So that's going to be quite fun. Going to quite enjoy that. So yeah, Uprising looks to be hype. Obviously, once I have my preview out there, I might do a little bit of a teaser or something if I have an idea of what it is and I can kind of give you guys hints without giving the game away. I might do that, put that up there, obviously just to keep things interesting and keep things exciting. I also need to sit down, and I'll be doing this probably over the weekend, and review the entries. For those of you who don't know, I was running a Photoshop a bear into this competition, where the person who gave me the best bear Photoshop or emoji into a fab card is going to win some Herald of Rebirth. So I need to announce that over the weekend, since the competition did actually end on Tuesday. It's just been a very busy week for me. I've been out at work events and networking and socializing and all that kind of stuff. So that needs to come up, and will come up in a week or two. In the meantime, yeah, sorry, not in a week or two, over the weekend. Once I've announced that, and of course, if you have not entered that competition, but would like to be in to win Heralds of Rebirth, a Doomsday or a Celestial Cataclysm playmat, you can subscribe to me on Patreon. That is something that I'm doing for anyone who is a Patreon of mine at the end of June. Depending on the tier of Patreon you are, that will be dependent on how many Heralds of Rebirth you will be eligible to win. If you are a tier 3 Patreon, you could win obviously 3. If you are a tier 1 Patreon, you can win 1. And I will be very generous with the leftovers. So, if I have spares, I may give someone more than they have subscribed to. And then, of course, the Doomsday and Celestial Cataclysm playmats will just be given out to anyone who became a Patreon. Since I launched Patreon about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago now, anyone who has signed up in that time will be entered into a raffle to win one of those playmats. And I'll be in touch with the details for your contact details, assuming you win. Right. Other than that, stuff is happening slowly on the Patreon. The second we finish with these ProQuests, I will go back to playing games with anyone who wants to come and join on my Discord. Link in the description. And we'll just be playing some games. There's always formats and things that need to be tested, questions that can be asked. And we're going to launch sort of the monthly Q&A next month. Just once we have a bit of a break from all the ProQuests and things like that. We're going to be doing a monthly Q&A on the game, and you can come and ask me any questions you want, and I will answer them or talk about what I've seen and how things are affecting. Yeah, so I think there's a lot of fun stuff going on there. Just remember, I do have Twitter now right here, which is, of course, Steelfur Speaks. Come and follow me on there. I've got like 300 followers. And if you're following me on Twitter and you're not subscribed to me on YouTube, then, you should subscribe to me on YouTube, because, I want that follower count to hit 2,000. As everyone does, I will do a giveaway of something. Once I hit 2,000, we'll make it something shiny. Maybe I'll give away this belittle that I torture for all of my YouTube shorts. I think that would be quite spicy. Maybe I'll give away my giant Lego Phoenix once I'm done with it. All that kind of thing. So, just do tell your friends. Obviously, I want to get as many people listening and tuning into the channel as possible. Other than that, have fun playing Flesh and Blood. It's a really great game. I'm hoping to recruit a load of new players this weekend who are going to come and join in the fun as well. Thanks a lot, and I'll speak to all of you soon.